Even though there's a lot of talk about it, and a lot of offers and agreements that are drawn up about it, the actual reality is it is not that significant.
You mentioned the operating cost for hydro is about $20 per megawatt hour?
In that Belly River example I was using, yes.
How does that compare to coal, gas, nuclear?
Oh, operationally less by maybe about half, but then you add the fuel cost on top of that, and that's the real operational cost. Okay, because fuel comprises at least 2/3 to 3/4 of their cost in any megawatt produced, whereas hydro doesn't have that fuel cost. We have a fuel rental, if you will, or water rent is what it's referred to, that we pay as part of the beneficial use of the water resource to the various provinces and it varies dramatically across the country as to what that is, how much we pay. In some provinces we pay nothing, other provinces we pay a fair amount. And it's about the management of the water resources itself across the board. And we've been trying to get a more direct line contact, because we think that the province should be investing more in our water resources monitoring and hydrometric monitoring systems, and coming up with a better measurement of our resource and management of our resource. And we'd like to see a direct correlation between the money we pay for rental and the management of the actual resource that is benefiting from that. So it's a matter of time to develop policies around that kind of stuff. And it's also difficult because the water resources are actually a provincial jurisdiction, but there are federal laws that control parts of our water resources. On international boundary waters, going in the US, we have a federal jurisdiction called the International Joint Commission. And we also have the DFO, Department of Fisheries and Ocean, which has a national mandate, as well as provincial regulatory agencies that have a provincial mandate. And they are somewhat overlapping and conflicted. So it's not necessarily a straightforward route through the regulatory process to get an understanding of some of the impacts on your operational costs.
Is it a global trend to have a smaller hydro project with smaller impacts and all that for the world?
Didn't quite hear the first part, sorry.
So is it a global trend to have a smaller hydro projects?
Yes, it is a global trend. Yes, it is. Particularly in Europe, they've made a tremendous amount of development of large hydro facilities in Europe for a long period of time. They're now capitalizing on the smaller aspects of things. In the case of Canada, we still have a lot of room for growth, and we've only capitalized on about maybe 10 to 15% of our true potential in the hydro world, and that depends exactly as to what impacts we're wanting to have, and what benefits that we are wanting to have relative to that. And it's a compromise. It's always a trade-off, and it's a matter of deciding from a regulatory framework and policy perspective exactly how we want it, and whether or not pollution abatement and energy security and things of that nature are important to us. We'll make some of those policy decisions, and the industry will react accordingly. And in the case of Ontario, for example, they introduced the FIT program, which is a feed-in tariff process, and they offer different energy values for different technologies. And solar gets $460 a megawatt hour today, whereas hydro gets $131 a megawatt hour, and wind a different price again. So their idea was to get the various technologies up to a certain level of capability so that the economies of scale and a sustainable industry evolves. And they made it mandatory in the wind and in the solar world that manufacturing, a certain percentage of the manufacturing occur right in the province of Ontario. And by shaping that marketplace like that, they are willing to pay an extra price to establish that, and then in time ratchet those prices down as the industries take hold. And that's what the whole feed-in tariff process is all about. The point is, though, is that it doesn't come without some planning and some vision and some commitment to something in a more longer-term basis. In the case of Ontario, they kind of didn't quite design the market quite right, because they ended up with over 6,000 applications for micro solar in the province. They've just completely floored their agencies. And if you drive through rural Ontario today, you can't go more than 10 kilometers in any direction before you see a micro solar facility up on a farm now. And they're everywhere. And it's good, but there's a high price for that, because the price was set a little bit too high, maybe, and the adoption was too quick. And this is all about timing, and it's about transition. And there's opportunities out there, and if you're on the right side of the market, it may be good for some people, not necessarily bad for some others. And it's a matter of getting that balance right and working through a process that allows that to happen properly. Yes?
In your opinion, what does the future look like for hydro development in Alberta? And you mentioned a weak policy frameworks and infrastructure difficulties, lack of programs like a feed-in tariff. Are we moving in that direction? Are there conversations with government, policymakers? Do you foresee Alberta?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. Okay.
Not a lot. We're, you know, I've grown up in Calgary and went to U of C here. I love Calgary and I love Alberta from that standpoint, but you know, we got a long ways to go. And the thing is that in certain sectors in the government and in the bureaucracy, they understand this, but they're